Mr. President, can I begin by apologizing to this House for my attire? I was asked to speak only 24 hours ago. In that time I've spoken in Madrid and in Parliament, and now I'm here, and it is simply not possible to find a tailor who could in time take out my dinner jacket in my cupboard so that it would fit me again. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. As for that imposter on YouTube, everybody obviously knows that this is the best university in the world. Everybody obviously knows that this is the union where they know what they're talking about and where they know what they do. So I don't know who you're referring to. You might look like me. There are a lot of men who look like me. What can I say? It gives me a great amount of pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I consider it a privilege, not just because of the august surroundings and because I am serious about my respect for the intellectual tradition that this institution holds, but simply also because now more than ever it is a vital topic to debate. It is an age that we live in which terror and its associated battlefields are all too real. And though most of the war is fought in the intellectual realm, let us not be too mercurial here today, as some of us have been. So I'm pleased that I've been offered the opportunity to oppose Shami, Professor Lazarus, not sure after your barb, but maybe Harry as well, who are brilliant, but who are wrong. And they are brilliant, and I sympathize with much of what they say, but they are wrong. And it is important to correct them. It is important that you vote against this motion. Ours, as I say, is undeniably the age of mass casualty terror. The threat is very real. It is not an invention, as too many people assert in too many ways, nor has its gravity been overstated. 9/11 happened. 7/7 happened. ISIS is real. It menaces us on our streets, at home, and has made our age one of unbearably barbaric violence that we had hoped to put behind us. In August 2014, the terrorism threat level was raised to severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. We've already heard reference to Andrew Parker, Director General of MI5, who said last month that his agency had foiled 6 major plots to attack this country in the last year, the highest not only since 9/11, but that he has known in his entire 32-year career. Make no mistake, Mr. Parker is not overstating anything. The measures that the proposition attacks are necessary and help us to protect this great, free, liberal democracy and to keep it that way. Let me give you some examples. Among the most recent terrorist plots in the United Kingdom are, for example, the Remembrance Day plot. These are my monikers for the plots, by the way, not official ones. 3 men are currently on trial, accused of plotting to carry out a beheading around last year's Remembrance Day, stopped by our abilities. The London police and soldier plot, as I call it, for which 5 men who are accused of planning a drive-by shooting from a moped will go on trial next year because of our abilities. And the Lee Rigby copycat beheading plot, as I like to refer to it, for which a not-so-gentle man by the name of Ziamani has been sentenced to 22 years in prison after a judge found that a realistic and sensible assessment of the whole of the evidence leads inescapably to the conclusion that he intended to carry out an attack. And let me tell you, that last one we caught by sheer luck. If there's a major terrorist attack, perhaps later, if there is a major terrorist attack, which most serious observers who are serious about this topic and the gravity of the threat in this country will tell you that we can expect to happen, and they expect to happen, the public will demand instant action, and rightly so. So the threat is real, and it is better to put thoughtful measures in place first, rather than wait for the day after and overreach in a panic. Let me thus mention one more attack to demonstrate the problem of the skewed debate that our opponents have forced on us over these issues. I refer here to the 2009 Manchester shopping centre plot. In March this year, Pakistani national Abid Nazir was convicted in a US court of plotting terrorist attacks in several countries, including the UK. His story illustrates very well the complex balance between liberty and security in this country and the unfortunate tendency in the area of terrorism towards anti-government conspiracy theories among some politicians and activists. In 2009, a large terrorist cell based in northwest England was arrested, averting a major car and suicide bomb attack against Manchester's Arndale shopping centre by Al-Qaeda. Concerned with national security, the government attempted to deport the men to huge public criticism, Two Labour politicians wrote a letter to the then Labour Home Secretary expressing outrage. The Muslim Council of Britain said that the government should apologise for smearing the suspects. The message was very clear. The government had overreached, irreparably damaging relations with Muslim communities by fabricating a terrorism plot and smearing innocent Muslim students, just like those innocent pro-terror people that you guys would have come onto campuses. Because the truth is, when they come onto campuses, things do happen. It isn't a free and sweet debate. People go to Syria and die as a result. Eventually, 8 cell members returned to Pakistan voluntarily. This is back to the 2009 plot. Nazir could not be deported there on human rights grounds, because we do have a democracy, and it would have been against our law to detain him without trial. However, fortunately in this case, the US was interested in Nazir after his name appeared in documents all over Osama bin Laden's Abbottabad compound. And thus he went to trial for his plots, the conspiracy to attack Western targets, including in Britain. Nazir's case should serve as a reminder that very often the government intelligence services and the police do act in our best interests on national security cases. We see this dynamic around the issues of people going to Syria also. Over the last year, for example, we're seeing huge criticism of the police over their inaction in stopping young people traveling to Syria, most particular in response to young girls and or families. But at the same time, we also hear about this overreach or heavy-handedness in terms of challenging extremism. But so often this is merely propaganda by people unconducive to this country's security. For example, the lawyer of the husbands of the 3 Bradford sisters who famously had traveled with their 9 children to Syria wrote a letter to the chairman of the Home Affairs Committee alleging that the police were complicit in the radicalization of the sisters, but also reported at the same time that the family traveled there, due to the oppressive nature of the continued surveillance by police. Forgive me, I need to make progress. I cannot overstate the importance of civil liberties. I really cannot. Our side treasures civil liberties as much as your side. But let us also be clear about the rightful expectation of the public to see these liberties defended not just by high principle, so they can live on in theory, but by the hard choices and problems reality demands of those whose first and primary task is to keep us safe. And let us be realistic about what this means today. Police and security services will always ask for the maximum to do their job well, and we should expect them to do so. However, this country has robust, democratically accountable checks and balances when deciding on these powers. Proposed bills have to go through both houses in Parliament. Once legislation is in place, it can and has been challenged in the courts. This is real. Powers have been taken away. Take the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act of 2001. I've already warned of the peril of overreaction in the wake of attack. This is an example of that. It allows for the detention, or it allowed for the detention of terrorism suspects, foreign terrorism suspects, without trial inside the United Kingdom. This was rightly and successfully challenged in the House of Lords and rescinded. But we still need to tackle the threat, which we have established as all too real. So a new measure was thought up, control orders, which have after further revision now been watered down into TPIMs. These have led to much opposition, but they can only be ordered by the Home Secretary on the basis of advice from the security services. There is a hearing in court. It is in secret due to the sensitivity of some of the evidence, but some of it is public, and the public evidence is enough for all of you to review and see that you would want these people to be under monitor. There's no question about that. Go and look it up yourself. The one case where a control order has been deemed to be wrongly applied was overturned by a judge. And by the way, this Home Secretary, Theresa May, had been railing against these, and within a month of having come into the office, having seen the intelligence, she had issued one herself. Indeed, you could see for yourself the effectiveness of the checks and balances last week. When the government's anti-extremism strategy, we've seen one piece of it came out. And what did we see? We saw the post that they had created, the Independent Review of Terrorism Laws, come out very strongly against it, and the government is now reviewing these laws as a result of his opposition and will take consultations in order to make sure that the laws are appropriate to the gravity of the threat without endangering your liberties overly. We do not live in a police state. Any claim that the government is just railroading us is absolutely preposterous. We have a free society with the right checks and balances. But we have a duty to protect against the barbaric murderers who want to kill us. And they do want to kill us. Measures to protect us are not an erosion of liberty. Much less do they amount to any form of surrender. On the contrary, we shall still never surrender. And these measures are simply reflective of the grave threats to our security and simply reflective of our tolerance not extending to those who would seek to murder us. You should vote against this motion and protect the liberties and the freedoms that you cherish in this country. Thank you.